What would you think if I told you there's an instinct so ancient, so buried beneath centuries of conditioning and culture, that it can make a woman abandon everything she's built? Her career, her children, her lover, even her identity, in the name of something she doesn't fully understand. This isn't about weakness. It's not about recklessness. It is not even about love. It is about a biological summons that speaks not to the mind, but to the marrow, a call from the unconscious that predates language, civility, or logic. A force that even Carl Jung, after decades peering into the abyss of the psyche, called one of the deepest mysteries of the feminine nature. This force is not romance, nor desire, nor even the pursuit of happiness. It is selection, raw, unapologetic, genetic selection. A program carved into the female unconscious, whispering not of fairy tale endings but of survival, of lineage, of strength. A woman may love with all her heart, but this instinct does not care about the poetry of devotion. It seeks only one thing, the ideal code of continuation. You may have seen it before. A woman in a stable relationship, secure, cared for, perhaps even adored. And yet, she begins to drift. Her gaze lingers elsewhere. Her energy fractures. To the outside world, it makes no sense. Why would she risk everything? Why choose uncertainty over security? Danger over tenderness? But what logic cannot explain, biology often can. This instinct does not speak in words. It moves through sensations, hunches, obsessions. It activates when a certain type of man enters her orbit, not necessarily the wealthiest, not the kindest, not even the most conventionally attractive, but the one who carries something ancient, something feral, confidence laced with unpredictability, dominance without desperation, a shadow in his smile that stirs something buried deep in hers. He is not always good. In fact, he rarely is. But he is compelling. Not because he completes her, but because he awakens her. Not the woman she shows to the world, the nurturer, the lover, the professional, but the one Jung called the anima, the deep, instinctive feminine that longs not for comfort but for transformation. And in that moment, her biology begins to speak louder than her beliefs. Love becomes soft and distant. Her values blur. What once felt like stability begins to resemble a cage. She does not mean to betray. She is not intending destruction. She is simply obeying a command that does not belong to the rational mind. This instinct is not evil. It's ancient. It's the same force that once ensured her children would be protected by the strongest warrior, not the gentlest poet. It is blind to emotional nuance but fiercely attuned to power, vitality, and presence. And when triggered, it creates a storm inside her, chemical, emotional, existential. She might find herself justifying the unjustifiable, telling herself stories to make sense of the shift. I've outgrown him. We were never truly compatible. I need to find myself. But these are often echoes of a deeper voice, the instinct trying to make itself heard through the filters of modern morality. Understand this. It is not shameful. It is human. And the more a woman denies this part of her psyche, the more it rules her in silence. Jung knew that what is not made conscious becomes fate. And for many women, this instinct becomes the architect of fate. The sudden breakup, the magnetic but toxic affair, the inexplicable rebellion against everything that once made sense. And yet, most never see it for what it is. They call it chemistry, timing, bad luck. But underneath the chaos lies a design. A primal, impersonal design. One that doesn't care if she's happy, only that she's compelled. And in this compulsion lies the risk. For not all that awakens the instinct will nourish the soul. The man who ignites it may not stay. He may not care. He may not even know what he's triggered. He is often a mirror of her shadow, of the part of herself she has buried in the pursuit of being good, being lovable, being acceptable. But still, she follows. Not because she is broken, but because something in her wants to be whole. Because beneath the polite surface of her life is a roaring need to feel something real. And when that feeling arrives, wrapped in the presence of someone who activates the instinct, it feels not like temptation, but truth. There is a moment, sacred and devastating, when the instinct overtakes her entirely. It is not a decision. It is a surrender. And yet, it masquerades as choice. The woman who was once measured, gentle, and composed, now burns with an energy even she cannot name. She is not chasing a man. She is chasing something ancestral, a permission to become wild again. Carl Jung spoke often of the shadow, the unclaimed aspects of the self, the repressed rage, desire, hunger, power. This man, the one who activates her instinct, is often not her future. He is her mirror. He embodies the fire she extinguished to survive, the confidence she forfeited to be accepted, the chaos she buried beneath motherhood, responsibility, and propriety. And so, she runs, not away from love, but towards something more dangerous, the dismembering of who she thought she was. Her stable partner may still be there, offering her everything she once said she wanted. But the instinct doesn't listen to vows. It listens to vibration. And the moment that vibration feels more aligned with survival, expansion, or awakening, the instinct reclaims its throne. You've seen it. Perhaps you've lived it. The woman who had everything but seemed haunted. The one who left a good man for a man who never called back. The one who wept on her bathroom floor, not because she didn't know it would hurt, but because she couldn't stop herself. This is not weakness. This is possession, not by a demon, but by the unconscious. Jung warned of the dangers of unconscious drives. What is not integrated, not examined, will act out in compulsive patterns. And here lies the tragic twist. Most women believe they are acting out of freedom. They say, "I followed my heart." But often, it was not the heart, it was the instinct, ancient and indifferent, cloaked in romance and rationalization. The instinct does not care if he texts her back. It does not care if he's honest or kind. It only cares that he stirs the genetic flame, that he carries, through his posture, his silence, his unpredictability, the illusion of being a superior vessel of strength. He is not chosen through careful evaluation. He is felt in the deepest recesses of the nervous system. This is why women, highly educated, self-aware, even spiritually awakened women, can be pulled into the orbit of someone who offers nothing more than the echo of a forgotten danger. It is not stupidity. It is archetypal. He often arrives during liminal periods, after the death of a parent, the birth of a child, a career shift, a spiritual awakening. He appears not because he is needed, but because the woman's ego structure is weakening. And in the cracks, the instinct slips in, not to ruin her, but to reveal her. The true question is not why she feels the pull. The true question is whether she knows what within her is being activated. Because awareness is the only antidote to possession. If she does not recognize this man for what he is, a symbolic messenger of her own unmet power, she will attach to him as the source. And this is where suffering begins. For he may leave. He may betray. He may never even notice the earthquake he caused inside her. And when he does, she will not just grieve him. She will grieve herself, the self she lost to the fire, the self who once believed she was in control. But here is where the deeper journey begins. Because the instinct, though brutal, is not the enemy. It is a compass pointing her inward, toward the truth that she does not need to be chosen by a man who triggers her biology. She needs to integrate the part of her that seeks him. The woman who believes she is free because she follows every emotional urge is still a slave. But the woman who sees her urges, feels them fully, and asks, "What part of me is this awakening?" She is on the path to individuation. For individuation is not comfort. It is not the quiet life. It is the violent alchemy of becoming whole. So when the instinct rises, hot, wild, undeniable, it is not a call to obey, but a call to investigate. Who is this man, really? And what forgotten part of your psyche has mistaken him for God? Because the truth is, he is not salvation. He is shadow. He is test. He is symbol. And symbols were never meant to be kept, only understood. The agony of misunderstanding the symbol is what fractures so many women. She believes she's been abandoned, used, deceived. But what she's truly mourning is the part of her that she projected onto him, the untamed, instinctual, sovereign self she saw reflected in his presence. It was never really about him. It was about what he activated. In the language of Jung, he is the carrier of the anima's forgotten fire. He brings her not love, but confrontation. He is the chaos that invades a carefully constructed life and exposes the fault lines in the foundation. He doesn't break her. He reveals that she was never whole to begin with. And yet, It feels like betrayal. Because women are taught to believe that the highest experience is love. That if they feel deeply, it must be true. But the psyche doesn't operate on such simple metrics. What feels true is often just what is familiar. And for many women, it is familiar to long for what cannot be had. To desire the unavailable. To mistake the heat of activation for the warmth of intimacy. She will say he made her feel alive. That he awakened something in her that had been dormant for years. And she's right, but not in the way she thinks. What came alive was the instinct. The part of her that chooses from survival, not self-worth. The part that doesn't ask, is he good for me? But rather, can he conquer the world? Will my children survive inside his genes? This is not conscious. It is ancient. The same instinct that once kept the tribe alive is now wreaking havoc in modern relationships. It whispers to her, he is strong. He is dominant. He doesn't need you, and that means your children might. But you are not your biology. You are not your trauma. You are not your grandmother's fears, nor your great-grandmother's silence. You are consciousness learning how to be woman in a world that still teaches you to measure your worth in how wanted you are. And that's the rub, isn't it? The instinct often chooses what is least available. Because he doesn't chase. Because he doesn't fawn. Because he seems already fulfilled. And that, to a nervous system trained to equate absence with power, feels like value. But value is not found in someone who activates your wounds. Value is found in someone who meets your wholeness with reverence. Yet the tragedy is, many women will walk away from safety, from sincerity, from depth, because their instinct has been mistaken for destiny. In truth, the instinct is a fire meant to illuminate your shadow, not guide your steps. It is an initiation, not a marriage proposal. And until a woman sees this, she will confuse every spark for a soul tie. She will keep repeating the same pattern with different faces, always pulled toward the man who doesn't need her, always bleeding for the thrill of being wanted by someone who withholds. It is not his fault. He didn't make her feel this way. She did. Her own psyche, dancing in projection, handed him the crown and said, "Rule me." But what happens when she takes back the crown? When she no longer bows to the instinct, but listens to it, understands it, without obeying it? That is the moment the alchemy begins. She no longer needs to chase the man who stirs her. Because she realizes, it wasn't him. It was her. Her fire. Her chaos. Her wild. And if she can see it in him, it means it already lives within her. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot become unless you confront the parts of you that would rather be chosen than be whole." The woman possessed by the instinct is not free. She's on a leash, one held by ancient fears, evolutionary programming, and societal lies that say she is only valuable when she is wanted. But the woman who awakens and says, "I see you, instinct. I feel you, and I choose differently," she becomes something else entirely. Not a follower, not a victim, but a sovereign. And sovereignty is not a life without longing. It is a life where longing no longer leads. She can still burn, but she does not burn down her life for a flicker in another's eyes. She holds her own flame. It is only when a woman becomes intimate with her own shadows that she stops mistaking others for the light. The man who once consumed her thoughts, who once dictated her self-worth by his attention or absence, now becomes what he was always meant to be, a symbol, no more, no less. His silence no longer echoes as abandonment, but as reflection. His distance no longer feels like punishment, but as clarity. She sees him now, not through the lens of her unmet needs or ancestral patterns, but through the eyes of a woman who has remembered her power. And here, the instinct begins to transform. It no longer pulls her into compulsive longing, into the ache of being seen by a man who doesn't even know himself. Instead, it becomes a sharpened intuition, a sacred inner compass, not demanding, but discerning. She no longer confuses activation with alignment. Because she has met herself in the fire. She has walked through the obsession, the craving, the humiliating ache of wanting someone who could not hold her, and she has emerged not bitter, not broken, but awake. The instinct, once her master, becomes her ally. Because now she knows, the power she projected onto him was her own. The magnetism, the intensity, the inexplicable draw, It wasn't his mystery. It was her unlived life, reaching for breath. She wanted him because something in her was dying to feel again. Not just love, but aliveness. And now, she gives that aliveness back to herself. This is not the ending most women want to hear. We are taught to believe in resolution, in fairy tales, in the idea that the one who burns you is also the one who will save you. But this is not that story. This is the story of a woman who stops waiting to be rescued from her own longing, and instead learns to rescue herself. She stops asking, "Why did he leave? Why didn't he choose me?" And instead asks, "Why did I abandon myself when he appeared?" Because every time she chased, begged, performed, dimmed, she was saying to the universe, "His instinct matters more than mine. His approval matters more than my peace." But not anymore. Now, she honors her instinct without being enslaved by it. She recognizes the pull, but she does not hand over the keys to her soul. She feels the old familiar ache begin to rise, and instead of chasing the man, she turns inward and chases truth. And here is where the real love begins. Not with the man who triggers her wounds, but with the one who respects her healing. He may not look like the ones before. He may not spark the same chaos. He may not keep her up at night wondering what she did wrong. Because he is not playing power games. He is not dangling affection like a prize to be won. He is present, and in his presence, she meets a new kind of fire. Not the fire of obsession, but of reverence. But she could not have received him before. Not when she was still worshipping the instinct as God. She had to descend first. Into the darkness. Into the cycles. Into the shame. She had to make the unconscious conscious. And now she sees everything. She sees that love without clarity is bondage. That attraction without awareness is addiction. That desire without discernment is just another way to bleed. And she bleeds no more. She bleeds no more because she has finally learned to hold the tension of her own becoming. To feel the hunger and not act on it. To sit in the fire and not flinch. To recognize that the storm within her is not something to be calmed by a man, but something to be understood by a woman. This is the path of the sovereign feminine. Not a woman who needs nothing, but a woman who knows what to give herself first. And in this knowing, she becomes untouchable, not because she cannot be reached, but because she can no longer be owned. She chooses, not from fear, not from instinct, but from wholeness. What changes when a woman starts choosing from wholeness is everything. The world begins to respond to her differently, because she no longer emits the scent of lack. She no longer performs for male attention, no longer orients her identity around the hope that someone might one day see her. She sees herself, and that seeing becomes her liberation. Men notice, not because she is louder or more adorned, but because there is a stillness in her presence that commands respect. She no longer rushes to fill silences with pleasing words, no longer bends her boundaries for the illusion of connection. She has touched the fire of her instinct and survived it. And that makes her dangerous in the most sacred way. Not dangerous in cruelty. Dangerous in clarity. She is no longer prey to the thrill of being desired. She is no longer seduced by the aloof man who triggers her need to prove her worth. When he disappears, she doesn't spiral, she studies. What part of me felt the need to chase him? What wound did he activate? She has learned to turn pain into insight, reaction into reflection. This is the mark of a woman who is doing the work. Jung called this work individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of the psyche. The light, the shadow, the instinct, the ego. Not rejecting any part, but learning to discern who is truly speaking within her at any given moment. And when she listens closely, she hears the voices more clearly than ever before. The instinct still speaks. It always will. It whispers, "He's powerful. He's dominant. He's your match." But now she responds, "I hear you, but I will choose." Because the sovereign woman does not silence her instincts, she places them on her council, not her throne. In this inner kingdom, it is wisdom who rules. And wisdom is born only through fire, through making the mistake, through loving the wrong one, through standing in the wreckage of a fantasy and still choosing to rise. She has done that. She has faced the part of herself that would rather be chased than cherished. She has felt the humiliation of giving her heart to someone emotionally absent. She has walked the tightrope between self-abandonment and hope, and fallen again and again. And finally, she said enough. Enough of mistaking intensity for intimacy. Enough of shrinking herself to become digestible. Enough of worshipping men who can't even meet her gaze with honesty. The moment she said enough, the old version of her died. The girl who needed to be chosen. The girl who mistook silence for strength. The girl who begged the stars to bring him back. She mourned her. She buried her. And she became a woman. A woman who no longer needs to be chosen because she chooses herself every single day. That doesn't mean she stops loving. It means she loves from overflow, not emptiness. She no longer clings. She invites. She no longer waits. She walks. And when love finds her again, and it will look different. Not like a storm, but like spring after a long, brutal winter. Quiet. Clear. True. He will not be a man who awakens her pain. He will be a man who meets her power. Not intimidated by her clarity, but drawn to it. Not seeking to control her, but to walk beside her. And still, she will choose slowly. She will watch. Not from fear, but from reverence. Because she knows what it cost her to rise. And she will not hand that over lightly. The instinct still flickers beneath her skin. But it is no longer the captain. It is a messenger. A sensation. A force to be respected, but not obeyed blindly. This is what true feminine power looks like. Not chaos, not seduction, but sovereignty. She has burned through every illusion, and now she stands as her own home. No longer chasing fire. She is the fire. And now, she walks through life not in search of someone to complete her, but as one who is already complete. Her eyes no longer scan the room for potential saviors. Her heart no longer leaps at the mere idea of being desired. She is rooted. She is grounded. And in this groundedness, she becomes magnetic, not because she tries, but because she is. Men feel it. The ones still governed by their own unconscious wounds are repelled, confused. She doesn't bite at the bait. She doesn't flinch when they pull away. She doesn't fluster when they push. Because she has already walked through the labyrinth of her own projections. She has seen the face of her animus and unmasked it. The charming liar, the unavailable hero, the cold intellectual, she has met them all inside herself. And she no longer needs them outside of her. The ones who do approach her now sense the difference. She is not a performance. She is not seduction. She is not the echo of someone's fantasy. She is substance. Presence. Mystery not from concealment, but from depth. This is the quiet power of a woman who has individuated, who has dared to question the instinct, who has done the terrifying work of sitting in her own silence, of watching the man disappear and choosing not to disappear with him. She becomes the kind of woman that others write stories about. Not because she suffers, but because she transcends. Not because she is untouchable, but because she is unshakable. She can love deeply, but she does not collapse into love. She can desire fiercely, but she does not lose herself in desire. And she is no longer afraid of the void. Where once she filled every space with fantasy, she now holds it with grace. Because she knows that silence is not absence, it is presence without demand. And solitude is not loneliness, it is sovereignty uninterrupted. The instinct still tries, sometimes. It whispers when a certain kind of man walks into the room. He's the one. He could protect you. He could make you feel alive again. But she smiles now. She places a hand over her heart and says, I already am. There is nothing to chase. Because the true path of the awakened woman is not to be chosen, but to choose. And when she does choose a man, it is not from a place of hunger. It is from a place of overflow. She doesn't ask, will he complete me? She asks, will he honor what I've built? Can he meet me in my fullness without trying to shrink or silence me? This man will not be intimidated by her. He will have faced his own shadows. He will not need to dominate her, because he will have already mastered himself. He will not mistake her fire for a threat, but for what it truly is, a beacon. A signal that she has returned to herself. Together, they will not play games of power. They will not reenact ancestral wounds. They will build something new. Something clean. Something sacred. But even if he never comes, she is already free. Because the one instinct that once controlled her no longer owns her. It still lives within her, yes, but she is no longer its slave. She is its teacher, its mother, its master. And this mastery is not cold. It is not rigid. It is alive. She still feels. She still burns. But she no longer lets the burn decide who she becomes. This is the rebirth. Not into perfection, but into presence. Not into a woman who never longs, but into a woman who does not chase her longing. Because she knows. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.